Tiff, you might want to mute yourself. I'm here. Well, praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. I'm used to an introduction. Sorry, saints. God bless you. God bless you. We are so happy to be a part of welcome to Mount Zion Assembly Word for the World. God has blessed us, and we are so honored and privileged that He has given us another day. We used to sing a song, just another day that the Lord has kept me. And those of you who are chiming in, you know that we sing. Sometimes we read a scripture, but we are always in the presence of the Lord. So I'm just going to start singing, I love you. I love you. I love today because you cared for me in such a special way. That's why I praise you. I lift you up. I magnify your name. Oh, that's why my heart is filled with praise. Oh, my heart, my mind, my soul belong unto you. You pay the price for me. Way back on Calvary. That's why I praise you. I lift you up. I magnify your name. Oh, that's why my heart is filled with praise. Sing it with me from your living rooms. Oh, I love you. I love you. I love you, Lord, today because you cared for me in such a special way. That's why I praise you. I lift you up. I magnify your name. Oh, that's why my heart is filled with praise. God bless your hearts. God bless your hearts. Those of you who are chiming in, good evening, Mount Zion. Those of you who are chiming in, God bless you. God bless you. We're going to start reading 2 Timothy 1:7, a very familiar passage of scripture. We have read it before, but it works in tandem with our assignment tonight and our subject tonight. For 2 Timothy 1:7, for God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. Of a sound mind. And God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. And so we give God great praise today. We are so honored to have with us Dr. JoAnn Sanders from Ohio. And some of you have been excited about. We touched briefly on it a little bit before. A couple months we talked about trauma. Some of you will remember that we talked about trauma and the effects of trauma. We're going to do as much as we can in this and sometimes not what it should be, but we're going to go on and hopefully it'll catch up even in the delay. So I just want to talk first of all, welcome Dr. Sanders. God bless you. I hope that you can hear me and I hope that you can hear what I'm saying. I just wanted to just give a little introduction. You know, since the beginning of the Azusa Street Revival, Pentecostal churches, we know we're known for our spirited and exuberant worship services. And as a matter of fact, people would often flock to our churches because they witnessed people being set free, right, and delivered by the laying on of hands. Some even maintain that there was a greater influence and power of those who were better equipped to cast out demons than we see now. That's what some people are saying. However, when we look at those deliverance services, did we really observe people being delivered by exorcism, as some have said? You know, the world calls it exorcism. Some by say by casting out of demons or devils. Or did some people just have a mental illness and were they categorized erroneously? And I want to say unfairly labeled. And so that brings to us today, we're blessed to engage in a scholarly discourse with Dr. JoAnn Sanders, a sanctified psychologist. If I don't have the right title, I know you're going to let me know. You've studied and written in this field for years, and she brings to us a plethora of knowledge and experiences from both the sacred and secular arenas. And so I know she's going to just talk briefly about her academic concentration. But most recently, I was able to observe her scholarship as she taught in the Department of Transformation and Leadership for the Pentecostal Assemblies of the World, which we're both lifelong members. Dr. Sanders, God bless you. Thank you for joining our Word for the World session tonight. I know you will give
Yeah.
definitions and dispel some myths tonight. But aside from how you are coping, um, okay, they're saying that I'm not connecting. I hope you can hear me. How are you coping with this pandemic, Dr. Sanders? How are you doing?
Oh, praise the Lord, everybody. I'm doing great. I have not a complaint in this world. I think that the Lord promised to always be with me, and He promised to take care of me. And so this pandemic has been. It is a little frightening, but in the whole scheme of things, for me, it has been a time of just being at home and not having the responsibility of having running around. I'm getting to know myself a little bit better and some other things, but also uh, it's causing me to be much more aware of the time of His coming. So for me, it was frightening that it happened, but in there I try to figure out what is the life lesson, what is God trying to say to me. And as I see a society where we are shifting from the truth to a lie, where we can have somebody stand and tell you that you're looking at something that's green and it can tell you that it's red or that's not green, and then people believe it. That has really been an enlightening piece for me. And then if we look at the Bible helps us to understand the time. So I'm doing good. I have no complaints. I'm learning how to be obedient to those who have rule over me, and just trying to grow in the Lord. Thank you for asking.
God bless you. God bless you. We're having some connection issues, but that's okay. We're going to keep going. Let's get right into the heart of your PowerPoint. And many have asked, when we look at activity within the body of Christ and within the world, many things are categorized or labeled in a misnomer fashion, right? We're looking at things that are demonic or disorder. And I know that you have some definitions and you have some myths that you want to get into. So why don't you go right into your PowerPoint, and
Okay.
hopefully my connection will get a little bit better.
Okay. So one of the first things, let me clarify something, because ethically I need to clarify something. I'm not a psychologist. I am a clinical mental health
Okay.
counselor. And
Yes.
while I have the authority, I'm a licensed clinical mental health counselor with a supervision endorsement. And what that means is that I am licensed to diagnose mental and emotional disorders. I'm diagnosed to treat them. I can do clinical testing. I can do those things, and I can provide supervision to those individuals who are trying to get their license. So I have we have a 2-tier license here in Ohio, and I have the highest tier of license. So, but it's unethical for me to allow to be called a psychologist if that's not what I am, and I'm a clinical mental health counselor. But I'm also a counselor educator. So many of you know what that means already, but I'm an academic and I'm a practitioner. So in my career, because I'm retired now, I have spent over 25 years training clinical mental health counselors and school counselors who then want to go into the field and become counselors. So in that position, I've been a full professor. I have been the only full professor of color in my private university in their history. There's never been another a professor of color that's been a full professor. So I've been the program director. I've been a KCREP liaison. I've been associate dean, and I retired as the dean. So I say that not to laud myself, but to say that I'm able to look at this from many different angles.
Yes.
I've worked in mental health, and I still do pro bono. I do volunteer telehealth counseling for first responders in the state of Ohio right now. So
That's
my
incredible.
foci has been on training. And the reason I went into that is because as I was studying, there weren't a lot of people who looked like me. There weren't a lot of people who believed like me. And so I wanted to be able to go in there to make sure that students who would come out would have experienced somebody of my hue, of my ethnicity, of my persuasion, and that I could make that kind of an impact. So that's what I've done. And I didn't give up counseling because I really love counseling.
Especially
My
with a sanctified background like that.
Yeah, but there's some ethical things that have to go into that, how you want to make that look. And so maybe at another time we can talk about this idea about Christian counseling versus secular counseling, because sometimes there's a little bit of an overlay. But just to kind of get where we're going
Absolutely.
tonight. So I am so excited to be with you all tonight, every last one of you. I wish I could see you, but I'm excited, and I bring you greetings from Sandusky, Ohio. I give honor to my husband, Bishop Rufus Sanders, and somewhere my 92-year-old father is listening in. He's going to get in after his Bible study, and so I honor my father,
Oh,
and I honor my sister Beverly, who takes excellent care of my father. So I came from a fourth generation apostolic Pentecostal group of folks who believe that anytime that the word is taught, we want to be able to support. So they love the Parchias. My father doesn't know them. He only knows the girls from what my sister and I talked about, but my father is just a Bible man. So some of what I'm going to say comes out of a storefront experience. My mother was my first pastor in a storefront church where we didn't go to the bathroom every 5 minutes. We sat in church, all 9 of us, while my mother preached and played the piano and that kind of thing. And so that's really all I really know. Okay, so let's get into our lesson. I want you to feel free to put your questions into the chat. And if you could go back to my first my heading. Yes. And so what we have decided to do, I'm going to call her Pastor, but Pastor and we've been talking about how do we stir up biblical conversations. You have a fine pastor, so she can teach you Bible, but I like to stir up conversations that causes you to move away and think, and then come back and ask your pastor. So we were talking about this idea of demon possession, but really for mental health. I'm going to stay in my lane. And so I want to talk a little bit tonight about misnomers, myths, and misconceptions, and label it bridging the gap between mental illness and religious thought. And that's what we want to talk about today. Now, if you go to my second slide. So on Wednesdays from 12 to 1 during the noon hour, I teach a class called Biblical Conversations. And it is open to those in our community, those in the public, anybody who wants to come. And the whole idea is that they can say anything they want. We can ask questions, but we try to support it with the word. But people come in who are not saved. People come in who don't understand Christ, and we try to help them understand. So today we went over this presentation, and these are some things I'm not gonna study tonight, but I'm going to throw those out and hopefully give them to Pastor. And at another time, you all can kind of delve into this if you're really interested in Bible philosophy and theology as some of us are. So one of the questions that came today after this presentation is, one is my affirmation. I believe there is nothing that cannot be healed by the power in Jesus' name. Let me be clear. There is nothing that cannot be healed. So then one of my students said, well, what does it mean to be healed? Somebody said, well, everybody know what that means. No. I want you to think about it. What does that mean to be healed? We're not talking about that tonight. This is just my class throwing some questions to you. And then maybe if another time our two classes can get together and have a nice discussion. The next one is, does demon possession suggest that the person is in agreement with the evil spirit, or did something just come upon them? The next one is, can a born again believer actually be demon possessed or demon oppressed? And then we must remember that God doesn't make sense when we put him in the context of our cognitive space. Okay, just a little teaser, just as the kids say, just saying. Okay, we can move on to mine, and I'll get to my actual presentation right now. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to look at a couple of meanings. And again, this is from a conglomeration of thinking, and some of this is my own. I think that it's important to start the basis of trying to understand what we're talking about. Now, if you all will stay with me, we'll get to the biblical piece, but I am mind, body, and soul. So there's a lot about me. There's a lot about me that I operate when I'm not necessarily in the spirit. I work, I go to the grocery store, you all attend children. So a mentally healthy person is a person, this has to do with awareness, who realizes their own abilities. They can cope with or adapt to normal stressors in life, work productively, able to make a contribution. There's some resilience. There's a level of resilience that we want to understand, not just for healthy people, but I'm going to introduce it here because they tend to be a little bit more resilient. Mentally healthy people are not absent of stress. They're not absent of problems. They're not absent of any of the other kinds of stressors, but they have figured out through resilience, through other things, through coping, how to maintain balance, how to maintain homeostasis. Because a mentally distressed person is somebody that I say is a little bit out of balance. They're a little bit off balance. There's somebody who may be overwhelmed by stressors. Look, there's an alliance with a mentally distressed person, and all of us experience that at some time. They can be overwhelmed by stressors. And when you become overwhelmed, sometimes you can't see your ability to cope, to adapt to some stressors in your life. Sometimes if you get a little bit too overwhelmed, it's really hard for me to think. Sometimes, typically, it is an initially inner struggle for balance. Mentally distressed people, almost all of us have experienced this at some time or another. I remember working on my doctorate. I lived in one city. My mother had a major stroke in another city. I'm not talking about 20 minutes away. I'm talking about over an hour and a half away. And I went to college in another city that was 90 minutes away from my mama. Now, every single weekend for over 40 years, I went to wherever I was doing, and I took care of my mama. My sister took care of her, but when my sister moved to California, so it was a many, many years, maybe 20, 30 years, I would go there. I felt, and I was working on a doctorate, and I felt stressed. I felt stressed enough that I thought that the only thing that's going to make me happy is to punch somebody in the gut. They told me to be my real self. I was so stressed. I came home one time and I was just crying and crying. And my husband was like, "What's the problem?" I said, "I can't remember my license number." He said, "Who needs to remember it?" I had just become overwhelmed. I wasn't mentally ill, but I was overwhelmed. I didn't
Would you say
necessarily.
that when you are overwhelmed, it's the little things that make you even more upset when you're really not in a good space?
I think at that particular point, when you're overwhelmed, the little things are big things. And
Right.
I
They
think
become, yeah,
you're absolute, yeah, because what it is says I couldn't figure out how am I gonna do all of these things and work on my I couldn't figure that out until and somebody said, well, you just need to stop and pray. Well, you haven't been overwhelmed. You haven't been over. When you can be overwhelmed enough, you may have to just sit there. You know it's eventually gonna get back to you. But
right.
when you're overwhelmed, sometimes for me, now I don't know about y'all, but when I'm overwhelmed, sometimes I can't. I read the Bible, but I can't make sense of it.
Focus.
I
Yeah.
can't focus. And sometimes I'm crying so that I think, and I have to be careful when I'm overwhelmed spiritually that I don't start blaming God. Like, why you let me go? So sometimes
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
overwhelmed, but that is not mental illness. That's being overwhelmed.
Thank you for clarifying that, because sometimes we have this displaced aggression and we lash out at other people, and people say, well, you just out of your mind. No, I'm overwhelmed. I'm not mental.
Yeah.
I'm overwhelmed. That's it.
Yeah. And sometimes you can see that when a person is in a crisis. Sometimes a crisis situation, what it does is a crisis actually knocks you off of your baseline. So for instance, if you have a really pretty calm demeanor and you can kind of figure things out, you may walk to the mall if you need a little refreshment
Mm-hmm.
or walk outside. If when a crisis comes, sometimes that thing comes so suddenly it knocks you off your baseline, and you're off balance. You lack homeostasis. And so
Mm-hmm.
when we work with people who are like in a crisis, our goal is to not solve that, to get them back in balance, because I believe that they can figure that out themselves if you can get back in balance. But that is not demon possession. That is not being mentally ill. Okay.
Right.
So hit me with the next one, and I will give you some more pictures. I will give you
It's yeah.
I mean, go ahead, Pastor.
No,
Okay.
no, no. It's that extra. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Because we have
So
a lot to get to. Go
yeah.
ahead.
So mental distress. Then, and I just tried to show you a couple of things. It's a state. It's a state of mental suffering when you okay, good, that's better. When it's a little bit better. So in what happened in COVID was it threw us off. We had never experienced a crisis like this before. Every
Right.
single thing we needed in terms of balance was challenged. We need social contact. We couldn't have that. We needed to know that we were being provided for financially. Many of us didn't have that. So if you look at this kind of hierarchical aspect of need, we need transcendence. Transcendence speaks
Mm.
to spirituality. That was going to be challenged. But because God is who he is, he threw Zoom, he threw these kind of platforms.
Yeah.
We were trying to figure that is a sign of a resilient person. All
Yes,
right.
Dr. Sanders.
But some people wouldn't take advantage of that. They just want to sit there. But it's okay to be mentally distressed. That does not mean you're not saved. That does not mean you're not strong in God, because I am body, mind, and spirit.
And
So
spirit.
let me just throw my toe in here. When Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane,
Yeah. Agonize, man.
agonizing,
Oh, oh, oh.
he was in a mental distress
Distress. That's right.
when when juniper bush, who am I talking? Elijah,
Elijah.
up under that juniper bush, my grandmother said, I'm from West Virginia, my grandmother said he was tarred. He was physically tarred. He sat up under that bush. He like, I can't go another further.
And
This
then it went into a cave.
But what did God do for him? He didn't rebuke him. He didn't tell him you the Lord. The Bible said he made a river where there was not supposed to be water.
Come on.
He made some water, and then he gave him what, and then he sent who? The ravens. If I'm not mistaken with my Bible, ravens are ravenous. They are not people who help.
That's a
They're
dirty
not
bird.
birds
That's
who help.
right.
They're the dirty bird. They birds who eat things. But the Lord will twist some kind of things around. But I want you to hear me. He also put everything we needed in his house.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we needed in his house. He needs people like me in his house. All right. So mental suffering, it can include anxiety, panic, self-guilt, suicidal thoughts. Somebody said, well, no, the Lord said, let this, but think on these things, whatsoever is good, whatsoever is lovely. You let mental distress come enough. And that's why you have to study the word. So in those moments when you can't read it, out of your belly gonna flow the word. The word will come
Yes.
in. Y'all get okay. So some common emotional reactions. Let me put my glasses on. I'm trying to be cute. Some emotional actions that you can experience during these kinds of things. Thank you. Will be panic and fear. Some kind, as Pastor said, annoyance, anger, confusion, embarrassment. Some physical things you may also increase blood pressure, tightness in the stomach. Sometimes can't eat, sometimes eat too much. Some signs of stress and burnout, irritability, loss of interest, those kinds of things. Okay, so we've got a definition. Give me the next slide. We've got a definition for mental health. Leave it right there. Don't put the word. We got a definition for mental distress. All right, now I show you a picture of a person with a head open, and this person is inside of their own head, trying to look out, but not able to fully get out. Oh,
Wow.
I'm not preaching, but I feel like moving into something right here. I'm trying to watch my time to be obedient. If you all have questions or thoughts, y'all put them in the chat, because I want to have a conversation with you.
Yes,
Okay,
please.
now hit the first thing for me. A mentally ill person may be somebody whose mind becomes ill. And how do we know? The thoughts and the emotions may be awry. It's a biological and psychosocial influence on the behavior. It's a disorder that disrupts a person's thinking, feeling, mood, and ability to relate, a diminished capacity. Come on, give me one more from Mayo Clinic. Mayo Clinic says that its mental disorders can be wide. They tend to be things that are diagnosable. I'm going to show you in a minute. It's something that says you need a little bit more help, because these things are affecting you. Again, mental illness could be depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, eating disorders, not just not eating. Sometimes this excessive eating, compulsive eating is a could be classified in the range of mental illness. All right. Do not be afraid of the phrase mental illness. Okay, come on, give me some more. Mental illness takes many forms. Some are mild and they interfere in a limited way, such as certain phobias, abnormal fears. I think it's okay to be scared of a snake, but then sometimes you don't want to be
Is
scared of
that a
something.
healthy fear, huh?
That's a healthy fear. Okay, now you're getting ready to start something now, Pastor, because that's important to know that all of these emotions God put in us. Somebody said, God didn't give you the spirit of fear. Go ahead and grab that snake. I don't think so. He gave me common sense too.
Wisdom. It's called wisdom.
It's called wisdom, and it's called an acknowledgement of one's emotions. He became flesh. So what?
Yes. Yes.
He became flesh for that reason, so he could be touched by our infirmities. The same way that diabetes is a disorder of the pancreas, mental illness is a disorder. It's of the mind, the brain functions that impacts biological and environmental. Now, it's important to understand that these things are both mental health and mental illness are both socially constructed. Why is that important? That's important because very often we spend a lot of time trying to evaluate people. We spend a lot of time trying to put labels on things. And I was growing up and there was 9 of us and we were not allowed to say shut up. Even right now, if I say shut up, my sister Bev goes into a whole nother other. But sometimes you just want to tell people, just be quiet and stop trying to evaluate something that you know nothing about. So we have put labels and stigma on things that inhibit people from being able to get better. We wouldn't have a problem if somebody had cancer, but we would have a problem if somebody had AIDS. We wouldn't have
That's true.
Somebody can write amen or something. We wouldn't have a problem if somebody said, I'm feeling a little bit, I can't hardly get out of bed. But if somebody says, I got schizophrenia, we got some problem with those because we've attached some stigma to those kinds of things for which most of us don't understand them fully. And most of us haven't taken the time to know that the Lord loves, he loves us all. And he has made provisions to be able to help us all. I was studying my thing today, and I'll get to that later. Okay, so let's move on, unless Pastor has some comments or questions she wants to throw in now.
No, go ahead.
Okay, hit the next slide for me. Okay, again, these are some characteristics. So we use mental disorder, we use psychological disorder, we use mental illness, but these are characteristics. I'll go through really quickly. They're unusual to the society and culture for which you live. As I said again, I have a cartoon where everybody is walking on their feet and a man walks in on his hands, and somebody like, this man must be mentally ill. And then they go to his country and everybody's walking on their hands and you come in walking on your feet and somebody say, they must be mentally ill. It's unusual in the society for which you would live. For instance, going to a funeral, laughing out loud typically is an unusual kind of thing to do. Is that making sense, everybody? You can have
and there are some social constructs that we have not learned how to appreciate or abide in. And you're right, other cultures, they even grieve differently. I was on a panel with a Jewish a rabbi woman, and she was like, you know why Christians don't know how to grieve? Because they have not been taught. She said in the Jewish culture, we grieve, I think she said either 30 days or 60 days, or sometimes a year, depends on which family. And she said, we do nothing but sit on the floor and grieve. And people bring us food. People come by and visit. We get it out. We grieve. And I said, well, in our culture, some people can't afford to sit on the floor for 30 days. They got to go to work.
Right.
So absolutely. It depends on your culture.
Yeah, that's a great point. I remember when the Columbine shooting or something was done. One of my former students was a school counselor there, and they had some children from another country who had seen a lot of death, and these children did not respond in the same way other children did, and they were like, "These kids are so hard and everything." They're saying, "We're used to this. We've seen this," and it wasn't that they minimized this, but we can't judge how they were responding to it without understanding this perception. So very much it's socially constructed. Okay, we good?
It's very similar, Dr. Sanders. Yeah, we're good. But it's just like the children now are so used to hearing shots, and they're used to seeing people die from bullet wounds. They're used to it. So they become so jaded to death that people are like, well, what about so-and-so got shot? We're used to it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this society, especially in Milwaukee, this society has become so jaded and hardened to shootings because there's so much, there's so much.
Yeah, Tiff, I agree with you, dear. Tiff says as a nurse, she's used to death. So that's the kind of person that sometimes we need to have with us when we have something bad going on. Everybody can't be out of control. We need a sister Tiff. We need, do y'all understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying it's right, but I also say for us to look a little bit deeper, because our children, not only do they become anesthetized to death, they become anesthetized to kindness, to obedience, to
Wow. Yeah.
to all of those kind of things, because you see somebody dead and you got one of your friends and a couple of your friends die. You be like, I don't need to obey this person. I may not be alive in a couple of. Does that make a little bit of sense?
I remember when many years ago, some of the kids in sixth grade, seventh grade were writing out their funeral requests. They were
Yeah,
writing out their, obituaries.
yeah,
It was like a fad in some of the schools. They were doing that because they say, "Hey, I may not live to see 18."
right.
So that gives them the right to mistreat you and be disrespectful because they may not live to be an adult. So they're going to act the way they want to now as children.
And if they're children of color, they're going to be easily labeled as being mentally ill because of the way they think, because we don't take into consideration the experiences. And so
Yes.
a part of what we as a people tend to do is take our myopic experience and
Mm-hmm.
overlay it on what is normal. So I say to you all, as I said to my students for over 25 years, I have never met a normal person. I don't know what they look like. I don't know what they act, smell, or eat like. I have seen typical, but if you know what a normal person is, please let me know. Please introduce them to me. I've never met one. All I know is we operate when the culture changed. Come on, Lisa said, death is glorified among the young. It's beyond sad. It is, but it is something that we need to notice, because when we're
Yeah.
talking about the labeling of mental illness, this understanding about it, and that it is a social construction, it's something we don't necessarily have any control over. Y'all got
Yeah.
it? It
and then
won't.
and then some people don't know how to change the narrative on that because this is what they've already seen.
Right. And then when you get certain people in control that can decide, like they can decide, this is a segue. I'm gonna stick my foot in something because I'm not scared of y'all. This is a when you have some people who don't want history to be taught correctly, so they can
Mm,
label critical race theory as being racist, and they have the power to do. Okay, that's not my subject.
come
All
on.
right, hit me with my next
Uh-oh.
slide. But I think I know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Okay, my point here is that all of us have some of these: personal distress, self-defeat. All of us have some of them. What makes it different is the extent, the weight, the weight that carries with this. Because sometimes my
Hmm.
perceptions are faulty, but if it's so weighty that I can't come back to a reality, that my interpretation becomes so skewed, then we have an issue. Okay, next slide, please. I love this slide. A mentally healthy person just is burning the candle on one end. They understand how I should be doing it. A mentally distressed person may be trying to burn it from both ends. That's why you're trying to hold it. A mentally ill person's got a whole bunch more stuff going on. That one
Mm.
burning candle is for one situation or one way of making sense, or one I can't exactly figure it out. I don't know. Am I focusing on my mood? I don't exactly know what it is. Okay, so that's just a little visual. Okay, the next one, please. Now we run down a continuum. We run down a continuum of being
We're gonna have to spend
healthy.
some time on this one. Yeah.
Yeah, we run up and down this little continuum. And when I was in grad school, I'm gonna tell y'all, I spent a lot of time down in the significant functional impairment,
Wow.
because I couldn't figure out. So I had money. It was a lot. Anybody who's worked on a doctorate, they will attest, not just that, but any kind of major school. And but I was happened to be in a counseling program, so I was with a group of other Black students, and there was only about 4 or 5 of us in a university that didn't seem to understand us. How do you see yourself? Okay, good, on this chart. So healthy functioning and reacting are things that you can deal with: self-care, social support. You call a girlfriend, y'all go out to eat. You can talk about some of these things: of procrastination, maybe trouble sleeping, more than just falling asleep. Sometimes there's early morning awakenings, some of those kinds of things. They running, backing up the continuum. When you start moving to where you get less support for yourself, less capacity to be able to bounce back. You become in what this continuum calls an injured kind of perspective, where there's a
Wow.
lot of lingering sadness. This won't go away. A preoccupation. I read somebody's journal, and this is somebody who is saved. I read he, she, it, or they journal. So y'all not getting no information from me. And every single day, that individual opened up with, "I am so depressed. I can't,"
Wow.
every single day. But when this individual, he, she, it, or they, came into the presence of other saints, pastor asked me how I'm doing. I said, "I'm blessed and highly favored. I'm
Oh,
doing
we've
fine."
learned how to wear masks well. Before the pandemic, we knew how to wear masks.
Okay, but so let me just jump and say, not did we just learn how to, we learned that we must. Because if we didn't, our self-righteous others would pounce upon us. You supposed to be a pastor. I love the Lord and I love his people, but I know more than once that his people worried him. The Lord rescued them, took them out of slavery. He took them through.
Yes.
He opened up the waters, took them through on dry land. They got over, looked over their shoulders, saw it close up. And I'm going to say 2 minutes. I know it was more than that. They talking about, well, hold on a minute. We need to go back. I thought to myself, church, first of all, how y'all going to get back? Because the water done closed back up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They said,
Wish to God we had died. That's what they said.
They said, we're going to elect a leader. We're not going to listen to any of these people. So we have a tendency to want to have stuff feel good for us. And if I'm okay, then pastor ought to be okay, because I went through that. And well, child, you and I don't have the same constitution. We don't have the same resiliency level. You don't know what I'm packing. So that's why the Lord tells us to be compassionate with one another, loving with one another, long suffering with one another. It talks about loving and it tells you what love does, but sometimes we don't do that. So you can get some of these places. So in that mask wearing, sometimes I don't believe that they were demon possessed. I believe that we've had people who have been wounded in our houses, our worship houses, who have not gotten the help they need because of shame, because of lack of understanding, because of a lot of different things. Yes, I said it. Thanks, Sister Jacqueline. We feeling this. Okay, give me the next slide. Pastor, you have to jump in if you want to, and then make sure
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, now, so are we good about let's look at the spiritual. Okay, take me off and put me bigger so I can see. Okay, a spiritually healthy person is one who acknowledges the sovereignty of God and continues to rely on his promises. It's more than just running your mouth. You have to walk this walk to achieve a sense of peace with life during all times. It is when you're able to find hope and comfort even in the hardest of times. The Lord said he chasteneth those he loves. I remember, Sister Jacqueline, I've told the Lord many times, you and I must be in a serious relationship. There must be some serious love going on, because I'm being beat up. But he said he chastens those that he loves. I remember. Go ahead.
No, I'm just, go ahead.
Yeah, and it said it is when you are able to find hope. It can help to support you as you experience life completely. It's understanding that all is available to me. All of it is. The cattle on 1,000 hills, all of it. But it's also a belief that though he slay me yet, because I'm going to go through yet, because he's going to supply all of my needs. It does not mean that you are absent of problems to be spiritually healthy. It does not mean that. It does not mean that your husband is wonderful, your kids are wonderful. It does not mean that. It means that you are in relationship with God such that you say, I don't understand this. I don't know exactly what's going on. But though he slay me, he said, I would never leave nor forsake you. So that's why we have to try to get ourselves good. Somebody said black folks are notorious for putting up walls with blanket statements. I'm blessed. And go ahead, Sister Lisa, I'm good. And you're suffering in silence. You're about to lose your home, your mind, and all of that. Sometimes Bishop Bauer said one time, we get beat up and we talking about help. Bishop said, you need to scream out, help. Somebody help me. Help me. But we, and it's unfortunate, and some of us gonna give an accounting for it not being able for the throne of God that we are supposed to be able to come to boldly. That's not what I'm talking about. Come on, give me another line, Sister Tiffany. Okay, it's being able to feel and acknowledge God-given emotions. Do not move away from it. God gave you emotions, but I refuse to find comfort in sadness. I'm going to be sad, but it is not going to be my companion. I'm going to be disappointed, but it is not going to be my companion. I may have to walk it off, but when I come back, I'm coming back strong. The enemy's got to know and see. Sometimes y'all mentally healthy, strong men and women, the enemy needs to look up and see me broke and see about 14 or 15 of y'all behind me saying, oh, I beg y'all, I beg. And I don't mean physically proxemics. I'm talking about sometime in the spirit. So we so busy trying to work. If I am crazy, don't worry about it. Just say to the enemy, if she is mentally ill, I still got her. Okay, give me another.
Yes.
Give me the next one. The myth is to be blessed, too blessed to be stressed. You ask somebody, how you doing, honey? I'm just too blessed to be stressed. Well, cut it out.
And looking stressed all the time.
Well, sometimes we can really look good, but there's a truism. We should be too blessed to be stressed. If we're thinking about be as being an identifier. Come on, Sister Jacqueline said, acknowledgement is not weakness in faith. It puts you in a position. Sister Jacqueline, if I was there, I'd high-five you, and then I'd hit you on your elbow, and I say, go, girl, you right with me. So you want the being stressed can't be your identifier. It can't be your essence. Just like somebody who's schizophrenic. I don't say you are schizophrenic. You are warring against schizophrenia because the schizophrenia is not the essence of who you are. What's my girlfriend say? Yes, it is not. It won't be my companion. Sadness, disappointment, won't none of that. It's going to come because I need to be able to feel that so that I won't think that I'm so much more than what I am. Sometimes the Lord has to humble us by letting us experience those things that he gave to us. He gave us fear. We're going to teach our kids to be frightened of certain things. They don't operate from a spirit of fear, but if you don't have,
there are boundaries. There are healthy boundaries.
Yeah, and if you don't have one, you probably are a sociopath.
Now that's a whole nother show.
That's a whole okay. So the myth. So then our experience, it can be my experience, but I can experience the stress, the trauma, the disappointment. I can experience it, but I said it came to pass. Y'all ain't hearing me right. It came.
So you experience it, but it doesn't define you.
And it doesn't stay with me. It came to me, Pastor. I'm going to step back. I'm going to step back for what? It to pass. I'm going to feel the wind of it on my cheeks. I may feel a little bit, but it will not get a key to the house. It won't bring no furniture in.
Come on.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. Come on. Give me another one. Okay. So 5 influences. And I know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about misnomers, but I want you all to understand at the base of what Pastor and I believe is that this is who we are as people, but we also can be cognizant of what is happening in the world. I am in the world, not of the world, but I am in the world. Mm-hmm. So 5 influences on on our definition of mental illness is society, then culture, then race, then gender. So let me just zip through that really quick.
And you know what? Well,
Go
you know
ahead.
what? We if we're not going to get to all 5 myths, we really not going to tonight. That's why I said we got to do a part. And you know, Mount Zion and those churches that are watching know I'm famous for doing part 1, part 2, part 3.
Oh, okay. So I love it, Sister Angelus, Sister McKinney, beautiful first name. This too shall pass. Meaning it was. I love that she said it was necessary. So somebody preached this the other day. What we've gone through was necessary.
It was good that I was afflicted. That's what David said.
It was necessary. So now I think I have 8 minutes. And so what I would like to do is I would like to just do this one, and then Pastor Wee and I can talk a little bit, and then
Sure.
you know, I can leave the PowerPoints if you want to finish it up, but
No.
let me do this. So society shapes our image of mental illness. It shapes it for us. It makes us just like it shapes the perception of beauty. I look at you, you are beautiful. If we step outside, they'll say, well, she's not thin enough. She's you're a little light enough, but you're not quite light enough. You're all this other kind of stuff. And then you look at people who look different than us. They take all of our stuff and put it into them to look like a. We get all confused. That's what happens with mental illness and mental health. And that's what happens with the church. They try to tell us, if you all are this, then you have no right to be sick. If somebody said the other day, it was the most foolish thing in the world. If Colin Powell had gotten a vaccine, why did he die? So you think to yourself, you couldn't be that surface in your thinking. Look deeper. Dig deeper. So society shapes that for us. Culture, it begins to talk about the poverty. It begins to tell us that mental illness in 1 year being gay was mentally ill. So in our diagnostic manual until 1973, homosexuality was a mental illness. That's why I want you to understand it's culturally defined. Now it's not a mental illness. There was a mental illness that they gave for runaway slaves. They kept saying, if you don't want to be a slave, you got to be mentally ill. I want you all to understand that these things are socially constructed. When we talk about race, more African Americans and people of color are misdiagnosed with schizophrenia and some of those severe mental illnesses than are others. People from the Caribbean, people from Haiti and the like, because they believe in a lot of different stuff.
Right.
They gonna say y'all schizophrenic and then whatever. Women, the gender piece, women tend to be diagnosed more with emotional disorders, depression or whatever. So just let me tell you the flip side of that. There are so many men. I'm talking about.
Come on.
Let me be careful.
We all know.
In our churches, let me look right in the camera. There are men in our churches that struggle with depression. They struggle with it because culture has said it's not manly. Culture has said it's more akin to a feminine
characteristic. Yeah.
And so they don't get the help they want, and it morphs into meanness and okay. The other thing, so the gender, and then the final one was the spirituality and the like. I got a lot. I just wanted, if that makes any sense. Somebody.
Oh my God. These people are relating to what you're saying. This is incredible teaching. As one of our viewers said, this needs to be taught to the masses. It's true. This needs to be taught. And though we scratched the surface in dealing with trauma a couple of months ago, the whole idea of disorders, and I had a couple of clinicians make sure they watched tonight who are members of our church and members of the community. And they were like, this is good teaching, Pastor. We need this. And it's so true. And so when you can't go to the altar, or when you don't want to go to the altar, and you know, am I suffering from demonic activity, or is it disorder? I've been abused. I've been going through things. And is it mental illness? Or like you said in the beginning, you said, you're not mentally ill. You've been overwhelmed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not ashamed to be. I'm not ashamed to be overwhelmed. You know, I told you in
Because
my.
you're not by yourself.
And if I was, I'd call my sisters up. I'd call Kathy. I'd call somebody, and I would say to them, because when you find people who will fight for you, they don't have to know all the specifics.
That's right.
But I told you all about that. Not this group, but that TV Women of Brewster Place, and all those various women, and that young woman who had her baby. Remember, she begged her husband, and he left, and then the baby took the pencil and stuck it in the socket, and it killed the baby. And she was totally traumatized. She was totally immobilized. They couldn't get her to eat. They couldn't get her to bathe. They couldn't get her to come out of her apartment. They tried and they tried. And then the character that was played by Oprah. This is for me. This is girl talk. Excuse me, brothers. Y'all can do the same thing. But Oprah had enough. She opened that apartment. She went in there, and that girl was sitting on the bed. She took her arm. She put her arm around her, and she went back to what Mama said. She just started rocking.
Yeah.
And then she went to humming. And you can't be starting a humming sweet hour of prayer.
Come on.
You can't do none of that other kind of stuff. Because sometimes, I don't mean nothing against the Kurt Franklin. Sometimes I need to hear something about, we need to go back to some of them. I need to get Kathy on the organ.
Them old hymns.
And hit one of them. But Oprah just started rocking and started rocking and started rocking. And before you knew it, that girl broke down and she began to cry.
Yes, she did.
And then the next thing that Oprah did, she took her to the bathtub.
Yeah.
And just started washing her. She didn't do a lot of talk. She didn't try to say this is gonna happen. I don't know what's gonna happen. All I know is I once was young.
Yeah.
But now I'm old. And I have never, I have
Lord.
Never. This is not this kind of presentation. Excuse me, y'all. I've never seen, excuse me. I'm done.
Oh my God, we got the scholarly, we got the secular, and we got the sacred. That's the kind of conversation that we have to have. We've been preached at, Dr. Sanders, we've been preached at, preached on, preached about. And these are the kind of open conversations and dialogues that I want to continue to engage in. We know the word, we preach, we hear it, but these kind of open, transparent conversations is what's going to take us to the next level.
I believe
of our isness and who God is shaping us to be.
I believe it. We have any questions, any comments, y'all?
I see some wonderful comments. Some don't acknowledge that they need professional mental health intervention because of the stigma. Absolutely. And you hit it. A lot of men need to be on medication. They need help. Well, okay, let me shut up. I can't diagnose nobody.
And it really is what the people at your church and others, we are part of the gifting to the house of the Lord. Well, I came from a storefront church. I told you my grandmother wouldn't use the word Pentecostal. They said we were holiness people. They don't call no apostolic. They don't do nothing. They said we were holiness people out of the hills of West Virginia. But what they helped us to understand is God puts everything you need. I was a little bitty girl talking about everything you need God have in the church. Me and my sister, we didn't know what we were talking about, but that's what we were taught. If you need, because I remember I don't want to say that. Everything you need is in the church. And I'm thinking, how is that possible? Because God has placed gifts, and talents in the church. And if I am sick and I've got a medical doctor who speaks in tongue, he or she may not even be in my area of specialization. If I get too sick, I'm gonna call Bishop Horace Smith.
Right.
I'm gonna say this. Kid said, "What you think?" Now he not my doctor, but I know that he has the expertise. The same is with those of us who are psychologists, psychiatrists, and the like. Why wouldn't you? Why do you think that the Lord would say you can do this? In let me, oh my goodness. In Mark 6:13, it said he cast out demons and anointed the sick, and they were healed. So there's two.
Yeah. There's a lot.
There's
Listen,
a lot.
listen. We got to have a part two of this. I don't know if it's going to be this Saturday for Saturday Night Live, you guys. I don't know. I'm going to try. I'm going to work with her schedule because we have a busy schedule as well. But I'm going to see if she's busy. We're going to do Saturday Night Live this Saturday at 5 o'clock. If she's available, if Dr. Sanders is available, I want to continue the discussion because people need it. They're chiming in, and we need this kind of conversation. If not, we will have it at a later date. But because because it's so fresh right now, I'm going to see if Dr. Sanders would oblige us. If not, we'll talk about it. Ooh, this is so needed and so needed and so needed.
I just pray, y'all, that I didn't. So sometimes I get too full with my own self,
No,
and
no, no. I'm telling you, people are they're chiming in. They're texting me. They're putting it on
oh,
Facebook.
thank
They're
you,
putting,
Jesus.
yeah, they need it. They need it. They need it. The numbers, yeah, they need it. This is excellent. And so often after we open up, and this is something that you and I talked about, I know we got to go, but people have to be careful when they open up wounds in the church they're not prepared to deal with.
Absolutely.
Sometimes people come to you and they pray, well, tell me what's going on in your life. You're not prepared. You can't handle the truth, as Jack
Yeah,
Nicholson said.
yeah, yeah.
You can't deal with it. So you have to be a trained professional. Yes, we are proud students of the Department of Transformational Leadership. You have been you and Sister Carla Causey are just excellent, and your husband, Dr. Sanders, y'all both doctors. I tell you, how is it all this? Y'all both eggheads bumping up against each other. Just all this knowledge, all
Yeah.
this knowledge. So listen, we're going to end the program. This is Wednesday night, Mount Zion Assembly, Healing Temple, Word for the Word. We are located 4300 North Green Bay Avenue in the city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. You see our website. We don't push giving. If you want to give, please give for the furtherance of the gospel. Thank you, Dr. Cook. She says you did an amazing job. Yes,
Thank
she
you.
did. Yes, you did. So we're going to continue this hopefully soon. So please keep us in prayer. Keep Dr. Sanders in prayer. She has been all over the world teaching this. She was a professor. She taught back and forth to Japan, went back and forth to Japan teaching this. And that culture shift that the Japanese experienced because of her gift, because of her calling and all the things that encompasses, it's nothing short of amazing. And maybe we'll get to that later. We'll talk about your Japanese experience. So God bless you all. Keep us in prayer. You can also reach us on Facebook as well as we are broadcasting live every Sunday noon from our sanctuary. So keep us in prayer and God bless you. God bless you. Dr. Sanders, thank you, thank you, thank
Oh,
you.
you
Stay on
so
the line.
welcome.
Stay
I
on the
will.
line. God
I'm
bless
not
you on
going
Mount
anywhere.
Zion. God bless you. Thank